7 YouTube channel, Tyrone. Let's go!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast. As always, I am Tyrone, and this week, he's back. It's time to welcome back Jay. How are you, bud?
I'm doing well, thank you, sir. My very first week off from the podcast, and it was work-related, so unfortunately, I wasn't able to jump on last week. But I did listen to the wonderful offerings that you both gave us in terms of WrestleMania 9 and all things WrestleMania transitions. And I have to tell you, you guys did a great job. I really enjoyed it. Other than the smack you talked about me, which was likely in your mind well-deserved, I was very happy to listen to you guys and lay out for a week.
Did you really think we weren't going to throw a little shade your way? I mean, come on. I got to say, I enjoyed the fact that Tyler and I agree on the fact that the Attitude Era is the most over-romanticized era of wrestling period, and the fact that the new generation is the second worst. It makes me happy to know I'm not alone in that world. But you love it, so I'm not going to shit on it anymore. You know where I stand. I know where you stand. I just have one question for you, though.
Sure.
Is it just me, or does Rick Boogs look exactly like he's trying to be Ted Arcidi in 2022?
Well, I don't remember Ted Arcidi doing a Man Mountain Rock gimmick, but I mean, there's certainly some similarities in terms of physicality, for sure.
The short, dark hair, the super jackness, and the red singlet. I mean, as soon as I saw him on my TV the last time, I went, "Oh shit! I get where I've seen him before now." In my action figure collection, I still have a Ted Arcidi one.
I guarantee you, there's somebody listening to this podcast right now that's Googling Ted Arcidi. They have no idea who we're talking about.
Well, Jay, why don't you let people know what we are talking about today, though?
Today is something that I am very excited to talk about. It's actually one of those episodes that I've been looking forward to since we started this podcast. And in fact, it's one of my favorite WrestleManias of all time, mainly because it's the first WrestleMania I ever got an opportunity to rent live on pay-per-view back in the days when you used to have to get the old controller boxes from your cable provider. We are talking about 1997's offering of WrestleMania 13. Now, we're coming off the heels of our booking of the In Your House Final Four, as well as we kind of amalgamated the Royal Rumble into that episode as well. Since we didn't really do a whole lot to change the Royal Rumble 97 with a couple of tweaks here and there, we've kind of put that all together, and Tyrone is now taking us home. So as you folks can tell, we are on the road to WrestleMania. We are on WrestleMania season full force. So Tyrone, before we get into talking about WrestleMania 13 and going back into our notes about how we got to where we're going to get to today, I did have a couple of fun little WrestleMania related questions for you. Are you ready, sir?
No, but lay them on me anyway.
Okay, sounds good. Well, the first thing I wanted to bring up to you is I was thinking about this today. You and I were texting off air, and I was up quite early this morning watching WrestleMania's past. And I'm curious as to your thoughts here in terms of taking your bias completely out of it. Who do you really think in the first few WrestleManias, with Hulk Hogan being the defending champion, or rather in one case being the one to win the championship, who was the true number 2 of the Golden Age? Was it the Ultimate Warrior, or was it Randy Savage?
What years are you talking? Like, when are we starting and when are we going to? Because the Warrior was really only there for 3-ish years. Three years of being a main name. Like, he was there, but yeah, I don't like, are we talking 85 to 90? Are we talking 87 to 92? What years are you talking here?
Well, let's talk about when the Warrior was kind of hot and Savage was hot. So let's go from, like, say 88 to 91. Let's go with that.
See, this is tricky because you kind of have an argument for both of them. With Savage, he was the champion. He won the WrestleMania 4 tournament. We were getting the Mega Powers. But with the Warrior, while that was going on, he squashed Honky Tonk Man to win the Intercontinental Championship, had a decent feud with Rick Rude, and then would win the title at WrestleMania 6. And they tried to do a passing of the torch type thing. So I don't know, if I'm being honest. I want to say Savage, but it could very well be Warrior, because Warrior was the IC champion, which you kind of think about as the number 2 person. Then he would win the championship, main event WrestleMania, and then beat Randy Savage actually at the next year's WrestleMania. So maybe it is the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, see, I go back and forth on it too, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, because I'm curious. We have, I guess, kind of touched on this before just in our personal lives, but I don't know. To me, it's always Savage. I mean, Warrior was huge. I'm not discounting that, but it's always for me, like when I think that era, I mean, there's a couple of guys I think of. I always think of Hogan, obviously. I think of Savage. Me personally, I don't think of Warrior that much. I think of more like a Jake the Snake type thing, but ultimately for me, I just think that when I look back in my mind's eye of that time frame and pop culture and how over wrestling was, it's always Savage for me. Hogan, Savage were the 2 top dogs, and then Warrior was maybe neck and neck there for a while, but he certainly didn't have the longevity.
I mean, if we're talking pop culture, then yes, I get Savage because he had the Slim Jim deal. He was on TV. He was on commercials. He was the voice of most of the WWF action figure commercials as well. So yeah, in that argument, I give you Savage. But you got to look at it from where they wanted people to be. Like, yes, Savage was kind of the number 2, but Savage to me was just the reliable workhorse, where in their mind, Ultimate Warrior was going to be the next main event superstar that they were building themselves.
Yeah, probably so. You're probably not wrong on that one. I think you can make an argument one way or the other, and I can't necessarily tell you you're wrong. I mean, if you were to say Savage or Warrior, I mean, who's to say, really? I think there's an argument to be made for either guy, but for me, it'll always be Savage. I'll always think Hogan Savage, not Hogan Warrior, when I think of that particular era in terms of top guys.
I mean, if you're also talking early years of the golden years, like 84 to 87, there could almost be an argument made for a Tito Santana.
For top, like number 2, you mean?
Yeah, he, like, especially babyface wise, he held the IC title for a while. He was the reliable one. He was always in a not really main event spot, but maybe on the B show he would have been main eventing on the house show tours. So you could almost make an argument for him from the early era of the golden era, from 84 to 86, 87.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe I would think more Andre, because Andre hadn't turned heel at that time, and I get that he wasn't maybe quite as active at that point, but Andre always, to me, would have been like neck and neck with Hogan until Hogan went over on him at 3, right?
To me, Andre was just a special attraction. He wasn't necessarily the top guy. He was somebody that they pulled out when they really wanted to draw some money.
Yeah, that's actually very fair. I can't argue that point. But I have a couple more questions here for you, just to wet our whistles here, talking about WrestleMania. The next one being, now that we're talking about this particular era, I'm just curious what you think about the possibility of Ted DiBiase holding on to the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Now, I'm not talking about that whole deal with, him having the title for like 5 minutes and what have you at that Saturday night's main event. I'm talking about an actual run. Do you like the idea of the tournament at WrestleMania 4? Do you kind of like maybe the idea of the main event being Hogan versus DiBiase for the title, which I think would be a very, very viable draw for a WrestleMania at that time frame, and then give Savage the title at another point? Or do you kind of like the way everything played out in history?
I like the way it played out, because when you think of Mania 4, it was supposed to be Hogan and Andre in the rematch. That's what you were building up. Yes, it was about the title, but that was the big draw, was the Hogan Andre rematch. So you kind of did the right thing by having it end in a draw, put the championship on somebody else, because Hogan was above the title. We know that. He didn't need it right there. He was already in a feud with Andre. He would get into a bit more of a feud with the $1 Million Man once the Mega Powers kind of turned on him. And yeah, I think it made sense to put the title on Savage. I don't think DiBiase ever should have had a run, not because he didn't deserve it, but because the Gimmick didn't need it. He was so rich that he bought the title. He ended up creating his own title. I don't think DiBiase ever needed a run with the title.
Yeah, that's also very fair. I mean, I feel the same way about Jake. It would have been great for him financially to be the champion, but I really don't think he ever needed that title. he was enough of a draw on his own that he didn't need that. And I'm not trying to denigrate the title by saying this, but, quote unquote, window dressing. Some guys, it really helps, and some guys really don't need it. Like Piper. Piper didn't need the championship either, I don't think. And Andre as well. I mean, there's a whole litany of guys that really didn't need the championship. So I think for those reasons, it makes sense for certain guys to have never had it. I was just curious in terms of what you thought, whether or not DiBiase should have had like a short run, 6 months or something. That old quintessential win it at Mania, drop it at SummerSlam template that they were using for a lot of years. So just wanted to pick your brain on it.
I'm pretty sure they still use that template quite often.
So the third question I have for you, and then we'll get into our show this week, is WrestleManias, the first 10. So as I said, and as I alluded to earlier, recently I've been going back, as I always do this time of year, watch some of my old WrestleMania favorites. I don't go in order. I just watch. This morning I was watching 6. The other night I was watching WrestleMania 11. So I just was curious in terms of your thought process. You take the first 10 WrestleManias. Which is your favorite and which is your least favorite, and why?
Are we talking which one I think has the best in-ring, or which one I personally like?
Which is your personal favorite out of the first 10, up to and including 10, and which is your least favorite? And then just maybe give me a little bit of reasoning why for each.
So my absolute favorite, it's a tie. It's between 6 and 9. And not because I just made a funny and made a 69 joke, but 6, Toronto, hometown. I was there. I was fucking 3 years old. It was great. And 9, it's hilarious to me. It's the world's biggest Hoga party. You and I have spoken about this. Tyler and I spoke about this last week. It is such a guilty pleasure for me. It has maybe 1 or 2 matches on it that are actually good, but you've got Evil Doink the Clown. You've got Giant Gonzalez. You've got Luna Vachon. You've got IRS and Ted DiBiase as the tag team champions. Like, it's just a weird era where it's so cartoonish and so over the top that I love every minute of it. As far as my least favorites go, I'm going to say 1 only because it was the original. It definitely wasn't what it turned into. It was still a bit of a spectacle, obviously, with the inclusion of Liberace, Muhammad Ali, Cyndi Lauper, things like that. We were in the middle of the rock and wrestling era. 1 isn't the greatest. 2 is pretty fucking bad, just by any standard. There really isn't anything on 2 that I enjoy. I'm just going to tell you how I feel about it. My worst ones I'll do top 5 worst and top 5 best. So my top 5 worst are 1, 2, 4, and 1, 2, 4, 8, and 10. And then the rest are in the better side. What about you?
I'm kind of along the same lines as you. I think for me, out of the first 10, I'd probably go with 6. There's been some really, really good ones in between. I mean, it's kind of funny that I just thought of this while we're talking about this, that it actually, like, out of the original 6 Star Trek movies, the 6th is my favorite as well. So there's a little bit of a coincidence there. Maybe I just like the number 6, but I just feel like WrestleMania 6, I mean, it's not all great, but I feel like it was kind of the climax of the first 10 WrestleManias in terms of it was the climax of Hulkamania for me. Then argument can be made that maybe it was 5 when Hogan won against Savage. I wasn't a big fan of the 2 from Trump Plaza. From an aesthetic point of view, I wasn't overly a big fan of them. I also didn't really care for the tournament. It was okay. But, I mean, 3 is actually a really solid Mania when you go back and watch it. The star power alone on the card. And, obviously Hogan, Andre, we probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about WrestleMania or perhaps WWF if it hadn't been for Hogan, Andre. 1 obviously stands on its own as the first one. So it's hard to kind of.
See, sorry, I don't want to cut you off here, but WrestleMania 3, yeah, there's a lot of star power on it, but that doesn't make it a good event. Just because there's a bunch of names doesn't mean I want to watch it. And that kind of draws into this year's WrestleMania. There's a lot of names, whether it be wrestling or pop culture, doesn't mean I want to watch it. I don't think 3 is good.
That's fair. I mean, I think some of the in-ring is good. I think some of it's subpar. I think you get that with every WrestleMania, though. I can't think of one WrestleMania where every single match was a clinic. But
17.
Wow,
17.
Yeah,
There really is almost nothing bad about 17. Like even the women's match with China and Ivory, it's a squash, but it's perfect. Whereas I find and tell me if I'm wrong here, but the WrestleManias that end in 3, 13, 23. I don't remember 33, so I can't explain that one. They're not good manias. They're 1 to 2 match cards, and that's it.
See, I disagree. I think 33 was a really good Mania. I think 23 was a really good Mania. That was Battle of the Billionaires. We got Shawn and Cena, which is arguably one of the most underrated WrestleMania events ever. You got Undertaker, Batista. You got a lot of good stuff on 23. 13, I mean, it's hard for me to shit on 13 just because I have such a personal connection with it. So I really love 13, but I can see why some people would think it's a one-match card. And 3, I mean, again, I would have to go back and watch it all through again. It's been a long time since I watched it all through, but in my mind's eye, it's a rather good show. I mean, I wouldn't say it's incredible, but you have to also remember, Tyrone, we're talking about the first few WrestleManias. I mean, we were still building this brand to become what it was. So I think that they were trying to throw everything they could at these spectacles, especially trying to fill 93,000 in the Pontiac Silverdome. That's a huge ask back in the 80s. And, you know, filling that stadium up with Hogan and Andre and then having all the other elements in between. I think we've talked about that as well, is why we'll never rebook one. I mean, we might go back on that and maybe one day we will, but I think right now we kind of said we're never going to book one because it's the first one and it's not really fair to criticize it because it's the first. We might go back on that, but I think one stands alone as well as probably, you know, the launching pad of the WWF in a lot of ways.
It's like rebooking Starrcade 83. It's the first one. It was a very different era. It's just hard to do. You can't compare it to the newer ones, and that's it. See, but I just want to say one thing here. When you say 23 and you said all the things that you liked, Undertaker, Batista, Shawn, and Cena, you know what the first thing that comes to my fucking mind is when I think 23?
What's that?
The Great Khali versus Kane. And I have no idea why, but that is in my brain. It's like WrestleMania 29. For some reason, I always remember Ryback versus Mark Henry.
Ebbs and flows, pal. Ebbs and flows.
Yep, indeedy duty. Well, any more questions, or are we?
No. I was just gonna say, like, I can't really, like, off the top of my head. I mean, I guess in terms of my least favorite from the first 10, I guess I would probably go with, other than the fact that Savage won the title, I'd probably go with 4. Maybe 2. 2 was okay though. I mean, I like that they tried doing 3 different locations. I thought it was really innovative for the time.
It was innovative, but it wasn't the best idea, and they realized that in hindsight. I do want to say one thing though, like, I like the aesthetic of 4 and 5. I thought it was cool that they were coming down that staircase and just that giant long straight and narrow right to the ring.
Yeah, you know what occurred to me too as well today before we get into the booking was I was watching 6, and for some reason I always used to think that those carts were always a big part of the early WrestleManias, and I realized today there was only 2 of them. There was only 3 and 6 that they ever used those carts.
Yeah, I wonder if they'd ever bring that back, like just for a nostalgic purpose. I could see them doing it with like, I could see somebody like a Sami Zayn even coming out in one this year. Do you know what I mean? Just one time, one person, just for shits and gigs.
They should set one up at a fan access or something so you get like a picture taken with a backdrop. That would be cool to get in one of those carts.
I would 100% do that. I don't care if I'm fucking 55 years old. I would still do that.
I'm right there with you. But anyhow, that's all I have for questions this week. I just thought it'd be fun since we were talking all things Mania, that maybe just talk about some other Manias and, you know, give ourselves a break from talking about current day. But one last thing before we get into the booking, I do want to send a special shout out from all of us at Counted Out 7 Network, as well as the Good Friends Better Ease podcast, to Big E. Big E had a very, very harrowing injury. As we record this, it was actually last night on SmackDown. Spoiler alert, folks, we do record sometimes a week or 2 early. And Big E unfortunately broke his neck after taking an overhead belly-to-belly suplex that did not go the way it was supposed to. Good news, he is not paralyzed. He has the use of all of his limbs and extremities, and he seems to be on the road to recovery. There's some fractures, but no breaks, and he seems to be doing all right. So I'm sure I speak for Tyrone when I say get well soon, and we can't wait to see you get healthy and happy. And, if you get back in the ring, great. If not, then, the most important thing is your health, and, you're in our thoughts, man.
Indeed. I got nothing else to add to that.
Alrighty, sir. Well, since you are the one that has taken it upon yourself to book WrestleMania 13, would you like me to walk us through how we got here, or would you like to piggyback off of your booking and what I did and how we left things at In Your House Final Four, and then you can take the wheel? How would you like to do it this week, pal?
Why don't you set it up and let everybody know how you left it for me and all the pieces to the puzzles that I had to put together here?
All right, well, the events of the Royal Rumble 1997 stay largely the same. The championship still changes hands, and Shawn still loses his smile. So at the In Your House Final Four, it was decreed by Gorilla Monsoon that there'd be 3 matches to crown a new WWF champion. Austin, Bret the Hitman Hart, The Undertaker, and Vader would be paired off into 2 singles matches, and the winners of those 2 matches would go on to be the undisputed World Wrestling Federation champion. We had Bret Hart going over on Vader. We had The Undertaker going over on Stone Cold Steve Austin. And they went on to have a real barn burner of a match with a lot of interference from both Vader and Mankind, as well as Stone Cold Steve Austin, with your eventual winner becoming your undisputed WWF champion, The Undertaker. We also had Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn finally win the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships over Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. They would go on to win the Best of 7 series, which would guarantee them a title shot and go ahead and exercise that title shot at the Final Four, becoming your current WWF Tag Team Champions, at least coming out of the In Your House Final Four. And then, of course, we also had a very riveting segment with a debuting Chyna who had debuted at the Royal Rumble and had viciously once again attacked Marlena, leaving Goldust to tend to her as well as himself. So going into WrestleMania, we have a really, really interesting, hot time in the company. We've lost Shawn. It's very similar to what's happened in canon, obviously, because we can't change those things. It's the parameters of our podcast. So I'm very curious to see where Tyrone takes us after the events of the Final Four. Tyrone, you ready to jump into this or what?
Okay, buddy, I am ready. And the first thing I want to do is just a little bit of commentary housekeeping before we hop on into this, okay? The Honky Tonk Man will not be on commentary at all through this event, as will Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is not in this pay-per-view. There is not a spoiler coming anywhere. There is not a swerve. There is no HBK on WrestleMania this year. Also, the booth for the entire show is Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jim Cornette. We are replacing Jerry the King Lawler with Jim Cornette on this show.
It's your show, man.
Well, why don't you tell us what the original first match was, and let's get this fucking ball going.
Are we going with a free-for-all match or no?
We are not.
Alrighty, so I guess we'll keep that the same, which was Billy Gunn versus Flash Funk. The opening contest.
We will not keep that the same for reasons down the road. You know what? You want a free-for-all match? Then let's say it was I don't know, Sal Sincere versus Billy Gunn. Let's go with that.
That works for me. The opening contest on WrestleMania 13 is a fatal 4-way elimination match to determine the number 1 contenders for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships. We have the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, defeating Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn, the Godwins, Henry O and Phineas I, accompanied by Hillbilly Jim, as well as the new Blackjacks, Wyndham and Bradshaw. Now, this match obviously is not staying the same unless you've made it for the championship. So what do you got for me, pal?
The opening contest of WrestleMania 13 is a Fatal 4-Way Elimination Tag Team match for the WWF Tag Team Championship, with Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn defending the tag titles against the Headbangers, the Godwins, and the new Blackjacks.
Okay, that sounds very good to me. Yeah.
So what we're gonna do here is it's still gonna be an elimination match, but whereas in the original match you had the bullshit double elimination of LaFawn and Furnas, and I believe it was the Godwins, correct? No, the Blackjacks, where they both got sent back. We're gonna have that kind of same spot, but it's gonna be the Headbangers and the Godwins that are being eliminated, leaving us with the Blackjacks and Furnas and LaFawn. Where I think this is going to turn into a giant, hard-hitting, but also technical match, because all four of these guys can go. All four of them can work snug. The final's going to come when Wyndham has LaFawn in the ring. Bradshaw is going after him, goes for the big boot, misses it. All of a sudden, we get a spike pile driver, double-team spike pile driver from the top rope from Furnas and LaFawn. You're winners and still tag team champions, Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I mean, to have those guys retain, I think Furnas and LaFawn hold on to the titles for a bit. Definitely makes sense. I mean, they chased it for the better part of like the latter half of 96 and 97. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have them hold on to the titles there. And it's a nice finish, too. The spike pile driver is something that you don't see a ton of.
I also don't think that the new Blackjacks get enough love. Like, we all know with tag teams, you put the word new in front of them and they're kind of doomed from the get-go. But I loved Bradshaw and Barry Windham as a tag team together. It's just two rough, tough Texans. I wish it had gotten a little bit more steam behind it and lasted a little bit longer.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that in terms of the gimmick, I don't think it was something that was really overly cartoonish, whereas some of the gimmicks of the time were, you have the TL Hoppers of the world. This particular gimmick, I think, kind of rang true, and it wasn't something that was passe or over the top, I don't feel like.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It was just two big, strong, tough motherfuckers who wanted to fight and win money. That's pretty much what it was. But yeah, that's what I have for that one. So I don't know if you want to move on to the next one, because this is where shit's going to get real fun.
Yeah, so the way you describe that, to me, it's almost as if the new Blackjacks were almost like the precursor to the attitude of the APA.
APA. Yeah. I didn't necessarily mean win money in a poker game. I meant like get the winner's purse, because it used to be that's how they would tell us. It's like, oh, the winner gets more money than the loser.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so next up on the card, we have something rather scintillating. We have Rocky Myovia defending the Intercontinental Championship versus the Sultan. What do you have for me, bud?
So I'm going to take you back to the Monday Night Raw after the Final Four pay-per-view. And Psycho Sid comes out and cuts a promo saying that he is getting tired of being overlooked, the fact that he wasn't considered for the Fatal Four-Ways or for the Elimination Tag Team matches, or not tag team, the Elimination matches for the WWF Championship is a complete and utter travesty. He goes on saying that he is declaring himself the number one contender for WrestleMania. At that moment, we hear, it's time, it's Vader time. Vader comes out, tells Sid essentially to quit crying, time to put up or shut up, and challenges him to a match at WrestleMania. Sid accepts on the terms that the winner of that match is undoubtedly the number one contender for the WWF Championship and will fight whoever the champion may be the following Monday on Monday Night Raw. So our next match is a number one contenders match for the WWF Championship with Psycho Sid going up against the man they call Vader.
This makes all the sense in the world to me. I was thinking to myself, I didn't know how you were going to break this card into pieces. I'm a little nervous about what's coming still this recording, but I feel like Vader versus Sid fits. It makes sense. I mean, we'd seen it a couple of months previous, actually for the same stip at the In Your House Buried Alive. But, I mean, at this point, there was so much going on all the time that who's going to remember that necessarily? And it's a fun match. It's a good match on paper. Two really big, brooding individuals who were going to give you a hard-hitting match, a lot of lumbering clotheslines and things of that nature. So walk me through it, man. What do you got?
It's just a really, really, really hard-hitting match with two big men who will beat the crap out of you, who are both actually physically dominating human beings. We get close to the finish, and it's actually Sid going for a power bomb on Vader, and he actually gets him almost up to the rotation before his knees and back give out. As that happens, Vader picks him up, hits him with his own power bomb, drags him to the corner, hits the Vader bomb, and we get a 1-2-3. Your winner and number one contender, the man they call Vader. Again, I swear to God, this isn't because I'm shitting on Sid. It's because I think they should have done more with Vader.
Oh, 100%. I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, we've tried to, with our booking in the last couple of months surrounding this particular time frame, I'm meaning, the In Your House, It's Time pay-per-view with the Royal Rumble, with the Final Four. We've really tried to reignite Vader, whereas I think the Fed kind of dropped the ball on Vader at this point. I mean, yes, he was feuding with the Undertaker in canon around this time, but at the same point, by the time we got into the spring, yeah, he had that little program with Shamrock, and that was really about it. He challenged the Undertaker for the championship at the Canadian Stampede, which was something thrown together because Ahmed Johnson got injured. You had Vader going up against Bret Hart, teaming with the Patriot, and Bret teaming with the Bulldog in a flag match at the Bad Blood pay-per-view. And after that, it was really not much. A small feud with Kane. Anyways, my point is that with Vader, I feel like at this point, this was the put up or shut up point for Vader. If you're going to make him that mastodon, you were losing time. I mean, he was on such a trajectory coming off of the summer of '96. He had so much momentum, and they somehow just dropped the ball on it. And so I think for sure this makes a ton of sense. And I love the fact that Vader is a player again in the main event picture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like the dude kind of got a bad rap because of SummerSlam 96. After that, it's almost like they just had no more faith in him. He kind of screwed up a spot with Shawn Michaels. We all know the story. And it just, to quote Jay, the bloom was off the rose by that point. So, yeah, I agree. It's time to heat him back up. He's got a big win at WrestleMania. Who knows where he'll be at by potentially SummerSlam 97. Like, this is what we're doing. We're making him good again. Yeah. Are you ready for the next one? Because I don't know. I think you're going to like the next one a little bit there, Jay.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where you go with this card because, as I said earlier, I'm a little nervous to see what you do with some of these matches, but I'm also cautiously optimistic. So the next match on the card is Hunter Hearst Helmsley going one-on-one with Goldust. And this match would be a singles, but if I'm not mistaken, Tyrone, Goldust was your Intercontinental Champion coming into WrestleMania 13 in our booking.
Well, Goldust lost the Intercontinental Championship the night after Final Four. That was a big Raw. We're going to get to a few things that happened on that one. So Goldust lost the Intercontinental Championship to Rocky Maivia at that Monday Night Raw. We go forward. The next week on Raw, Rocky Maivia defeats easily the Sultan for the while retaining the Intercontinental Championship. While he's cutting his post-match promo saying that he is a fighting champion, he will take on all comers, we hear very familiar music. And up from the commentary desk gets Jerry the King Lawler. He grabs the microphone and says he's sick and tired of this punk kid with this championship acting like he is better than everybody because he thinks he can beat everybody. And Jerry Lawler throws down the gauntlet and challenges Rocky Maivia for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. Our next match is Jerry Lawler versus Rocky Maivia for the WWF Intercontinental Championship.
I'm frankly in a little bit of shock. Wow. Very interesting indeed. Walk me through it. I'm curious. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Walk me through it. I want to hear how you have this all laid out.
Well, okay. We all know that when it comes to the King's commentary, I'm not a big fan, but I do, like many other people, think that Lawler should have had a WrestleMania moment that wasn't a Michael Cole match. So Lawler comes out ready to fight, kind of he's still playing a heel, but also the fans are slightly behind him because we're in that period where they're starting to turn on Rocky. So as this is going, Rock has got the upper hand, beating on Lawler. All of a sudden, the ref's back is turned. Lawler hits him with a low blow, does the chicken shit heel, kind of pokes him in the eyes. He's doing his usual laughing and making fun of him while he's in the ring. Starts hitting a couple of rights, gets a body slam up to the middle turnbuckle. The strap comes down, the fist goes. As that's happening, referee is checking on him. Jerry Lawler pulls out a pair of brass knuckles. As he's about to put the brass knuckles on, the soul man Rocky Johnson appears. He is trying to fight them off of Jerry Lawler. He gets them off of Lawler as Rocky Myovia goes to put him into, what was the name of his move there? Like the side suplex or something. Goes to hit him with it. He ends up mistakenly being thrown into soul man Rocky Johnson. As that happens, Jerry Lawler hits another low blow, then hits a pile driver for your 1, 2, 3. Your winner and new Intercontinental Champion, Jerry the King Lawler.
I don't know how I feel about this. I know that's probably
some of my
you.
logic behind this is, like I said, they're already starting to turn on Rocky. It wouldn't be long before the crowd, no matter what Lawler did, was fully behind him. Attitude Era Jerry Lawler he could do no wrong. He could tell everybody in the world that they were giant pieces of shit and like just berate their parents and their mothers and their fathers and their siblings, and they would still love him. So what I'm doing is just kind of escalating that already.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. And yeah, I think that it's one of those things with him because he is quite funny. He's got a very quick wit. I think a lot of people just really enjoy, even when he was a heel, they enjoyed his quick one-liners and his humor, which is one of the things I love about Lawler. I just don't know how I feel about him being IC champ at this time. I mean, I'm on the fence about it, which I'm sure surprises you because I know that you know that I love Jerry Lawler, but I don't know how I feel about this. Let me sit with this for a couple minutes, and I'll let you know after you're finished your booking where I land on it.
That's totally fair, man. Like, it was just something I thought, why the hell not? Who sees this coming? I like to throw random things in there, and I thought it was kind of a fun idea.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I'm not like shitting on it or anything. I'm not really sure how to digest it right now, if you know what I mean.
That's totally fair. So what I'll do then while you're digesting it is I'll just hop into my next match here because I feel like I have a couple extra ones on this card than the actual event. So up next, we have a one-on-one contest, and it is the Battle of the Brother-in-Laws. It is the Rocket, King of Hearts, best heart of all times, Owen Hart, going up against Davey Boy, the British Bulldog.
Now, is this for the European Championship, or was that a thing at this point?
This is just a grudge match at this point because after they lost the Tag Team Championship, the following night on Raw, again, I'm telling you, that Monday Night Raw was stacked, Jay. You should go back and watch it. I'll tell you that right now. They invoked the rematch clause, which again they lost. At that point, it was just the breakup that we all knew was coming. They blamed each other. Davey Boy snapped, ended up beating the hell out of Owen. Owen is actually the face in this situation, with Bulldog being the heel. So we get the match. Owen is ready. He's the fighting champion, or not champion, sorry. He's the fighting heart, as all hearts are. He is living up to his name. Bulldog comes out. Immediately, they just start brawling outside the ring. The bell hasn't even rung yet. It is just turning into a full-on Pier 6 brawl. There are chairs. There are ring bells. There are drinks from the fans that they are stealing and throwing on each other. Finally, the referees get it under control. It gets in the ring. As soon as that bell rings, they are just going at it hard. Sleeplexes, body slams. Owen Hart's doing his top rope fun missile drop kicks. It is just an unbelievable contest. We get to the finish where Bulldog has Owen down. He's been working him over in a side headlock. As he gets to his feet, Owen does the usual elbow into the midsection, slings him into the ropes. As he ducks, Bulldog kicks him in the face, picks him up, hits him with the running power slam. Your winner, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith.
Yeah, I could totally see this match happening on the card. I mean, if it's anything like the match we saw in the finals of the European Championship tournament, I mean, obviously this one is a little bit more of a brawl than the scientific match that we got. I challenge anybody that listens to this podcast to go back and watch that match between Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, European Championship from Berlin, Germany. It's the last Monday Night Raw before Raw is War was a thing. And it's arguably the best match in the history of Monday Night Raw. It's at least in the top 10. It's a conversation. I would even say the top 5. But yeah, I love this dynamic. I think these two guys had great chemistry, both as partners and opponents. But I'm going to go back to my previous question. Was Davey Boy the European champion at this time? Was this a non-title match? Was the European Championship even a thing at this point? Where are we with that?
He was champ, but it was non-title. It was more personal than about championships.
Okay, so did the European Championship final, was that still Owen and Davey as well? Was that like another layer to the story, and that kind of helped escalate this feud, was the fact that Davey went over in the European tournament too?
Okay, clearly I didn't think about this at all while I was rebooking, so I don't know. Let's say that Owen wasn't even in the tournament.
Okay, that's not a problem. I completely get that. For sure. I like this match a lot. I feel like it kind of made sense for it to happen. You know, based on where we left off the Final Four, it kind of made sense to have these two guys go at it. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is really well booked, man. Good job.
Well, thank you very much. Now, we're going to go into a weird little direction here. So, our next contest is a mixed tag team matchup. And it is Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and the ninth wonder of the world, Chyna, going up against Goldust and Marlena. Now, hear me out here before you want to kind of one-sided what the fuck this is. So, the Monday after the Final Four pay-per-view, Goldust lost the Intercontinental Championship to Rocky Myovia, mainly due to interference from Chyna, causing him to be distracted, Rocky to get the win. No one's really pissed off that Rocky won that way because they already hate him. Goldust is now pissed off that he doesn't have the title. He's already mad because of the fact that they have beaten down Marlena. As Jay had booked at the Final Four, Marlena was just laid out. So Goldust is solo at this point. He tries to chase Chyna back through the locker room. Triple H lays him out. They stand over top of him, laugh, and walk away. We go forward 2 weeks on Monday Night Raw. Goldust is out, giving an interview. Marlena is by his side. And that's when she just grabs the microphone and says she's had enough of the bullshit. The crowd is stunned that, A, she's talking like that, the swearing. Goldust looks just absolutely beside himself that she is saying this. And then she just says, screw it. Hunter, Chyna, Wrestlemania, us versus you. Obviously, Triple H accepts. He laughs, thinking that the match is in the bag. So we go into this mixed tag team match. It is 90% Hunter and Goldust. We're not getting the women really involved until the end. They get tagged in. Marlena's just running away from Chyna because that's really all she can do. As she's running, Goldust accidentally, quote unquote, accidentally trips Chyna. She falls into the steel steps and is kind of out. She's a little dazed, but the men have been deemed the legal men because a tag was made between Marlena and Goldust. So as Triple H and Goldust are in there, Goldust gets knocked down by Triple H. He's about to go for the pedigree. Marlena runs in and looks like she's actually about to seduce Triple H, like she's coming to her senses, according to him. She's kind of rubbing up and down his chest, and as he lets go of Goldust, she doesn't pick up. She reveals from behind her back she has a golden purse. She turns around, clocks him in the face with it, knocks him out cold. Goldust slithers into the pin. Your win by virtue of loaded handbag, the old school dirty trick that they all used to do in the 80s, Goldust and Marlena.
The Missy Hyatt loaded Gucci bag, indeed. Okay, so a couple things here. The first one being, when I kind of booked that angle at the In Your House Final Four, this was something that crossed my mind. In fact, on the episode, I did discuss it with Tyler. Tyler was the one that I booked this with, or rather recorded that episode with, and I did say that there's a possibility that I could see possibly this match happening. The other scenario for me was doing the steel cage with Hunter and Goldust for the Intercontinental Championship. I personally don't care for the mixed tag, but with that being said, the way that you've booked this, you've convinced me that it's the better choice. And this is indeed the better choice. I do like this match a lot. The way that you booked it, the way that you had Marlena on Raw, kind of break the censorship rule. We just had Bret Hart say bullshit on Raw, the go home Raw to WrestleMania 13. So there was precedent for this happening from time to time. It would be shocking coming from Marlena, who hardly ever spoke at all at this point. I think you did a really good job booking. This might be one of the better things you've actually booked in the history of the show, this angle. I really like this.
I mean, you pretty much set it up. I just had to knock the pins down. So it's a collective effort, buddy. We did it together. But thank you. I appreciate that. Can you let me know how many matches are left on the original card now from where you would have left off?
We are at 4 matches left on the card.
Okay, I have 5. So I'm going to go into my next one, and then we'll go back to you leading the way. Sound good?
Sounds good to me, bud.
So my next match is probably a weird one for some people, but I feel like this card has been pretty stacked nonstop. There really hasn't been the ebbs and flows. It's just been balls to the wall, let's go from the get-go, which to a degree is the Attitude Era, so it makes sense. But up next, I have the Sultan going one-on-one with Flash Funk. I think, considering Flash Funk had only been in the company for about 5 months, they still needed to have the heater on him. His gimmick was kind of stupid, but we all know Too Cold Scorpio is a hell of a worker. So I have this being Flash Funk going over. It's a showcase for Funk. Nobody really gives two shits about the Sultan. I'm just going to say it. It was one of Rikishi's gimmicks that didn't get over. Flash Funk, the fans were behind him. He had that fun, energetic music. He had the Funkettes. So why not keep the momentum going with this man? Give him a WrestleMania spot that isn't on the free-for-all. Hence why that match had to change on the free-for-all.
Yeah, I get ebbs and flows. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe this is your, what was it I booked a couple weeks ago? Hacksaw and Texas Tornado versus Repo Man and the Mountie. I kind of feel like maybe this is your version of that. I mean, I get why you're doing it, and the ebbs and flows make sense. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't know. It's hard for me to say, like, I'm fine with the match. It feels like maybe it's misplaced. I don't know. Yeah, I guess if you're gonna break up, you had that the hot angle with the mixed tag. Yeah, I guess you needed something as a buffer into the next. So for that reason, yeah, I'm okay with it. Who'd you say goes over? Sorry.
Flash Funk, because it's a showcase for him. We're trying to keep his momentum going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I guess for the purposes of trying to, again, ebbs and flows, you don't want to front load the card into, exhaustion for the audience. And then by the time we get to the main event, people are just sort of sitting on their hands. So yeah, this would probably be, and no disrespect to either performer, but this would probably be the popcorn match in some ways. So I'm okay with it. Yeah, that's okay. We'll break up the card a bit.
Oh, no, it is the popcorn match. And again, no disrespect, but that's what it is. Because we have 4 matches left that are all pretty big. So why don't you tell me what the next match on the original card was, and let's see if it stays the same.
The next match on the card in canon is Owen Hart and the British Bulldog versus Vader and Mankind. So obviously that is not happening any longer. So what do you have in its stead?
The next match on the card is a 6-man tag team brawl, Chicago street fight between the Legion of Doom and Ahmed Johnson going up against the Nation of Domination.
So we're keeping this the same as in canon.
Well, no, because this time we're going to have the Nation go over. Because I am a firm believer of if it's your hometown, you don't win. You don't want to always give them that. I think it's funnier that way. And we know the Legion of Doom is from Chicago. But the way I changed this was, obviously it wasn't 3-on-3. Because when you're the Nation of Domination, you're a fucking nation. So I have PG-13 getting their licks in. I have D'Lo Brown getting his licks in. For fuck's sakes, Clarence Mason does it. But the real key comes when I have a returning Kama Mustafa, returning a couple of months earlier than he actually would. He wasn't actually signed to WCW. I can do this. He was a free agent. He shows up at WrestleMania, lays out Ahmed Johnson, Farouk hits the Dominator, 1, 2, 3. Your winners, the Nation of Domination, with the returning Kama Mustafa.
Okay. I'm fine with Kama coming back. I'm actually fine with the Nation winning. My only thing here is, so we didn't blow off this Ahmed Johnson and Nation feud, and I just feel like that needs to get blown off. Like it's been going on and on. I mean, it went on all the way until Survivor Series 97.
Who's to say it's not blown off? Farouk won. That could be the end of it. Let Ahmed realize he can't take on a Nation and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like you can blow off that feud with the heels just definitively going over. I mean, what feuds do end that way? When you have, back in this time frame anyways, when do you ever have the heel just win and then they both ride off into the sunset into other angles? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I get why you did what you did. I like that you brought Kama in, and I'm fine with the Nation winning. I think it's just we're gonna need to come up with a creative way to blow off this thing with Ahmed, because it's just even at this point, it's so tired.
Just hit him in the kidneys again. Let him disappear. Let his contract run out. I just love the fact that the two things that you are the weirded out by on this show the most are Jerry Lawler winning a title and Ahmed Johnson getting pinned.
Oh, I don't care about Ahmed Johnson getting pinned. I just feel like the feud at this point had been going on since the summer of '96, and I'm all for long-term booking, but this feud is especially, I felt like in canon went on way too long. It went on for almost 2 years. And this, obviously we're not quite at that point now. So as long as one of us kind of puts a bow on it in the next couple of months with our booking of 97, it's completely fine. So I like that you had the Nation go over, because I like that they stayed strong. I personally would have preferred the Nation stay together the way they were and then add members, as opposed to getting the DOA and the Los Boricuas. So, we'll see what we do in 97 with that. But I kind of like the heel Savio. I like the heel Crush. I think it was a good dynamic. So maybe we just add to that instead of breaking them all apart and then rebuilding them. I don't know. We'll see. But I like that you kept them strong here. So it's good. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll take fine. What was next on this card, my friend? Are we at the one thing that I think you're the most scared of?
The next match on the card is a submission match with Ken Shamrock as your special guest referee. Arguably the most famous and best match in WrestleMania history. Bret the Hitman Hart defeating Stone Cold Steve Austin.
All right, so here's what we got going on here. I couldn't change this. We all know that this is the best match on this card. It's the only reason most people watch WrestleMania 13. I know you said you love it, but that's mainly for nostalgic purposes. It's not the best Mania. We all know that. It's probably in the bottom half of it. But this match is perfect. Nothing is changing. Shamrock is still the guest referee. Austin still passing out in a pool of blood in the sharpshooter. I couldn't touch this. It's a masterpiece.
Well, I appreciate you saying so. Yeah, that's one of the things I was definitely nervous about for this particular event. There's one other thing that I'm very nervous about as well. But with this particular match, I don't know how you could have changed it. I mean, I probably would have hung up on you if you'd changed it. I don't know how you could. It's really, there's a conversation of top WrestleMania matches, like Mount Rushmore WrestleMania. You know what? Sidebar. Let's do a sidebar. That's what we do on the show. What the hell? Sidebar here. Tyrone, your Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania matches. If you had to pick them right now off the top of your head, what do you got?
I'll go Savage and Steamboat. I'll do... Oh, fuck. This is tricky. I'll do Savage Steamboat. I will do WrestleMania 19, Rock and Austin.
It's hard, I know. Maybe it's an unfair question, actually. There's so many matches.
Yeah, it's way too hard. You know what? I'll do TLC 2 just for like kind of a gimmicky match. I think it was great. And I will throw on CM Punk versus The Undertaker.
Okay. I like that. I would for sure do Sean Taker 1. I would do this match, submission match. Just off the top of my head, again, like my answer is just like yours probably would change tomorrow. I'm sure if I asked you this question, your answers would change tomorrow. I would go with the triple threat at WrestleMania 20. And oh boy, it's either, I think it's a toss up between Sean and Angle or Brett and Owen.
Oh, I fucking forgot about Brett and Owen and Sean and Angle. Yeah, I see. We can't do this because my answer is going to keep changing.
Exactly. So, that was a fun sidebar, but one that's kind of impossible to answer. I mean, we'd have to really sit down and really, really think about it. There's so many matches that are amazing that we don't think of off the top of our heads. So it was an unfair question to ask, but anyways, a fun little sidebar nonetheless.
Indeedy. So what do we have on the next match on the card here, bud?
Well, the next match on the card is Ahmed Johnson and the Legion of Doom going up against and defeating the Nation of Domination, which is on this card, but has changed slightly and was the match previous to the one we just discussed. So I don't know what you have next, pal.
If you remember a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that we should put a certain thing on every WrestleMania card. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, I do exactly remember what that was, and I was afraid of this, and I don't know how you do this with so many of these currently going on in the company at the time. It made sense in 2001. In 97, I'm a little skeptical.
So up next, we have a 22-man Gimmick Battle Royal. And here are the parameters of this. They had to have been active within the last 10 years. They also, within the last 15 years. They also had to have an actual gimmick. I can't just be like, oh, fuck, oh, Jesus Christ, Haku, you're in there. It would have to be King Haku, per se. So, your participants in this Gimmick Battle Royal are B. Brian Blair and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, the Killer Bees. I mean, Hillbilly Jim, he's with the company, so he's going in there. Bob Backlund also going in there as the psychotic Mr. Bob Backlund, chicken wing loving, not breaking it on a cameraman. Hacksaw the Natural Butch Reed, the Honky Tonk Man, Axe and Smash of Demolition. Don't throw legal shit at me. I'm doing this my way. George the Animal Steel, the Bolsheviks, Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zukov, Bad News Brown, Sam Houston, the Young Cowboy, the Brooklyn Brawler, Mr. T, the Giant Gonzalez, Bo and Blake, the Beverly Brothers, the Warlord, Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers, the Outlaw Ron Bass, and Doink the Clown.
Okay. Walk me through this. Who wins the match? I'll give you my thoughts after you tell me the finish.
Well, the finish is kind of like in 17, where it's quick. Everyone's just kind of getting thrown. Wow, thrown. That's a word. They're all getting yeeted for those young kids out there. They're all getting thrown over the top rope. Our final four end up being Bo and Blake, the Beverly Brothers, Doink the Clown, and Butch Reed. As this is going on, Butch Reed and Doink the Clown decide they have to team up to take out the brothers. What happens then is Doink obviously turns on Butch Reed because you can't trust a clown. They end up throwing Bo over the top rope. But as that happens, Doink then turns around, goes to throw Butch Reed out, who counters it and tosses Doink the Clown over the top rope. Blake Beverly then goes after Butch Reed, who ducks a clothesline, backdrop over the top rope. Your winner of the Gimmick Battle Royal, the natural Hacksaw Butch Reed.
Okay, I like the winner. That's a fun finish. I like that a lot. Here's my problem with this, and I think it's a big problem. You're doing a Gimmick Battle Royal when you have a ton of gimmicks in the company at the same time, so you're almost making fun. Like, I don't know how you have Hillbilly Jim in the match, and then you have the Godwins wrestle for the tag team championship. So I think the easy way to fix this is, instead of calling it a Gimmick Battle Royal, you call it like a WrestleMania Classic Invitational or something, and you take like the comedic element out of it, make it more of a serious, we're bringing back old school guys, as opposed to the tongue-in-cheek Gimmick Battle Royal from WrestleMania 17. That worked at 17 because we weren't in that era anymore. But when you're doing a tongue-in-cheek, hey, let's make fun of gimmicks while we have a roster full of gimmicks, I don't think it works. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And the good thing is I can still keep 90% of these guys in there, and it's still the Legends Battle Royal, or the WrestleManias of past Battle Royal.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that there's no problem with you doing this, as long as it's not slanted in some sort of a comedic, hey, look at these failed gimmicks type thing. I mean, you could definitely do that in future WrestleManias. You could even do it at 15 if you want, or you could do it at, we saw it at 17. Do it again at, I don't know, 22 or something. You can do that, but in this time frame, 97 WWF, I don't feel like you can make fun of gimmicks because there's so many of them already.
I understand where you're coming from, but even in 2001, there were still gimmicks. Like the opening match at 17 had the Right to Censor in it, which was a gimmick.
Yeah, but it was a more realistic gimmick than like the plumber or the, Duke the Dumpster Drosy or Mantar. You know what I mean?
All right, your point is there. I get it. I just said I was going to put one on, so I did. And because fucking Tyler decided to completely jack me of not getting Giant Gonzalez at WrestleMania 9, got to put him on a Mania card somewhere.
Did you say he was in this? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I did indeed, and I should have let you know that the opening spot was just getting him over the top rope. Everybody doing what they do with the big men and tossing him over.
Nice. Okay. Well, yeah. So you can do it however you want. Obviously, it's your card. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if, like, I just feel like it needs to be more of a serious tone. Do you agree with that, or are you going to keep it as like a gimmicky kind of like ha-ha spot?
No, I'll give you the serious tone. That makes a lot more sense.
Okay, cool. I like that a lot then. With that being said, then I'm 100% fine with that. Butch Reed going over too. And the other fun thing about this too is I'm sure that all these guys that were in the match were free agents at the time. So we can maybe have some fun matches on Raw the next night. You could have Butch Reed go up against a current day guy. Maybe have Butch Reed go up against, I don't know, a Flash Funk or a Sultan or Billy Gunn or something. It might be fun to have him do that just to bring him back.
Or we put Butch Reed in the Nation of Domination as kind of the mentor leader role.
Oh, we could. That's something to discuss for sure. It'll be interesting to see who books the next pay-per-view, because low-key, one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time is In Your House, Revenge of the Taker. So I'm going to be very interested to see which one of us gets that particular piece of business to rebook. But next up on the card is our main event, as far as I know. It's The Undertaker defeating Psycho Sid, which is not happening on this card. So you said you had, I believe, 2 matches left, or are we at the main event now, pal?
No, we are at the main event, and I feel like this is the other thing that you were worried about, and it has more so to deal with the finish and not who's in it.
Precisely.
Our main event of WrestleMania the 13th, because god damn it, it's The Undertaker and he's evil. It's the 13th, is The Undertaker defending the WWF Championship inside of a steel cage against Mankind.
Okay. Cage threw me off. I'm surprised, but listen, you look at this feud with The Undertaker and Mankind, starts the night after WrestleMania 12 with Mankind attacking The Undertaker while he's facing he being Undertaker is facing Justin Hawk Bradshaw. Fast forward to a somewhat of a traditional wrestling match at King of the Ring 1996, which escalated into a real fist fight and a real Donnybrook. From there, we go on to the Boiler Room Brawl, which was very innovative for 96. Of course, the first ever Buried Alive match, which is the best of the Buried Alive matches and was actually a very, very underrated and well showcased match. We go then into The Undertaker going up against Mankind the following month at Survivor Series with Paul Bearer hung and suspended above the ring in a shark cage. This really is, if you're going to do a gimmick for these two guys and do something fresh, I mean, we're going to get Hell in the Cell presumably a couple of years from now. But if you're going to do this match one more time, Mankind is the logical number one contender based on their feud from 96. Having The Undertaker just won the championship at Final Four. A steel cage match really does make sense. 2 questions. Was it the Big Blue? And was it the Cyclone fence? Which one was it? And in either case, was the cage built in real time around the ring, or was it lowered from the ceiling?
So it was Big Black, the one that we would see at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and it is built around the ring. It is not lowered. We are still doing a little bit of old school on this one. Now, as far as this match goes, we go back to not the same Monday Night Raw where everything else happened, but the week after. The night after The Undertaker wins the championship, he's not on the program. They're saying that he went through hell and back. He is just resting some injuries. He'll be back. He comes out the next Monday on Raw and kind of cuts like a pseudo out of character promo. Says how he beat Bret Hart. He's no longer an issue. Psycho Sid and Vader, whenever they're ready, he'll deal with one of them. Stone Cold Steve Austin, not even on his level yet. He doesn't know who he's going to face at WrestleMania because he has just beat them all. There's no one left. Then you hear Mankind's music hit. He comes out, says, yes, Undertaker, you beat me, but I've also beaten you. I want a shot at that title. Let's go. WrestleMania, blah, blah, blah. Undertaker accepts. We get there. We get the steel cage stip just so that, because after he accepts, we get a bunch of people coming out and attacking The Undertaker. There's still the allegiance with Vader and Mankind to a degree, so he's out there. Steve Austin runs out, attacks him. It's just all the people that he just ran down except Bret Hart coming out and attacking him, Psycho Sid, etc. We get the cage just to keep these two in the ring and to keep everyone else out. So as this match starts, it's just a get-go from the beginning. Mankind is charging at The Undertaker, using the cage as a weapon as only Mick Foley can, whether it be to throw the opponent into it, excuse me, or to use it as an advantage to himself, to utilize it as something to jump off of, some kind of weird weapon, I guess is the best way to put it. We get this going back and forth. So the match ends as both men are trying to climb out opposite sides. Mankind is feverishly going as The Undertaker is almost at the top. As The Undertaker gets over his side, Mankind is also getting over his side. We are going with the old school 1986 photo finish between Hulk Hogan and Paul Orndorff. as that's happening, it looks like both men's feet have hit the ground at the same time. The final ruling on this match, your winner and still World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion, The Undertaker.
Okay, so I can breathe a sigh of relief that you didn't break the streak. I was very fearful. That was my biggest fear on this show, was that you're going to break the streak just to fuck with me. So I'm glad you didn't do that. I don't think you can break the streak. I mean, until we get closer to, WrestleMania 30 time. If ever. For me personally, I think rebooking this universe, we should never break it. But that's another conversation for another day. Quick question. When you mentioned all these guys doing run-ins, the Vaders, the Steve Austins, this was like the weeks leading up to the match, right? Not the actual match?
Yeah, sorry. So that would have been 2 Mondays after the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view.
Okay, so this wasn't happening in the night of the event. Like, we weren't having like Steve Austin.
No.
Okay.
It was the reason the stipulation was added, was to keep any kind of outside interference away.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird, right? Because I feel like the cage makes sense for the feud, but I would have preferred a one-on-one match. But at the same time, the one-on-one match had already been done, so you kind of had to do the cage. And to keep everybody out, like, I love that you justified why you're doing the cage, because you have all this interference. So the cage, I'm fine with. The finish is a very uncharacteristic finish for The Undertaker and his matches. So it's different, which I like.
But see, that's the thing, though. Anytime The Undertaker and Mick Foley were in the ring together, you didn't know what was going to happen, because both of them were so wild at all times that they could have done anything. And you saw The Undertaker do things that weren't necessarily what that character had done all the time. You saw little snippets of a real person. And I figured, with almost the work shoot promo that he was cutting before, this is kind of going along with that.
No, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to, like, you say this, you've said this so many times on the show that I almost have to talk myself into it while we're recording. And I feel like I'm doing that right now. So they almost both hit simultaneously, but you figure out that The Undertaker's the winner. So at this point, like, is Mankind, is he injured? Is he kind of like where is he once this ruling is made? Like, is he like wrecked on the floor? Is he kind of up and moving around? Do they continue to brawl after the decision? How do they do that?
See, I thought about where to go with this, and I'm not going to lie. There was part of me that wanted to have The Undertaker with his championship and go up the aisle while Mankind is still, like, just crumpled over by the announce tables. And as The Undertaker gets to the back, our final image of WrestleMania is a foot tapping to a familiar beat. But I thought that was really dumb to do that. So it ends actually with Mankind charging at The Undertaker after the decision has been made. He throws him, Undertaker then ducks it, throws him into the cage. We get our tombstone, but on the mats, then The Undertaker does his on one knee. The lights go out, his music hits, we go off.
Okay, so in your mind, does this feud continue? I know you're not booking into past Mania, but in your mind, where do we go from here? Is this continuing on, or do we get the new fresh challenger with Vader? Like, how do you see this playing out? Because I'll be honest with you, I was about 50-50 on you getting this booked as to whether it would be Vader or Mankind. I was personally thinking you were going to choose Vader. I'm not surprised you chose Mankind, but I thought for some reason you might go with Vader. So I'm just curious where you would go with this, like, if you have any ideas. I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Honestly, if it were up to me, the feud is pretty much done until the following year when we get around Hell in a Cell like King of the Ring. But I would have Vader take the title off of the Undertaker the next night. Because if I had put Vader and the Undertaker in the main event, I probably would have ended the streak, and I didn't want to do that to you. That is why we went this way. Because at some point, I want that title on the Undertaker, or sorry, on Vader. And why not just do it on a Monday Night Raw to prove that anything can happen on any given night?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, though. I mean, if we're going to still go into the Hart Foundation stuff, I mean, at that point, are we going to somehow try to turn Vader face if he's the champion? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider going into 97. It's actually a hard year to book because there's so many different dynamics at play. And with that as well, I mean, this Mania is hard to book. You did a really good job with this Mania because it's a hard one to book. It's a transitional, much like 9 was last week. It's a transitional Mania. We're going from the new generation into the Attitude Era in a way. And you had a lot of things you had to consider here. Makes 100% sense to me that Mankind's the number one contender. Again, based on the feud. I mean, he would be the number one contender the following month in Canada at the Revenge of the Taker pay-per-view. So,
well, and plus, like he could make the argument based off of your booking that he retired a legend in Jake the Snake Roberts. He kicked out of the DDT, and nobody had ever done that. Jake took it so poorly that he had to retire. We all know the truth that he was fucking released, but he could have used that too and just say that he destroyed his life. He could destroy the Undertaker's.
Yeah. I'm good with this. I mean, I think that if the goal is to get rid of Sid and Taker, which obviously we all know we could have done better there, and you obviously have done much better here. And we have no Sean. I like that you had no Sean on the show at all. It made sense to just keep him off it. Yeah, I mean, I think you did a really solid job here. Again, it was not an easy card to rebook, much like 9 was not easy to rebook, much like 19 won't be an easy one to rebook. I mean, there's certain Manias that, because of the nature of the company and how the direction is changing, it's hard to kind of honor the old guard and then really move forward with the newer direction, if you know what I mean. Like it's one of those Manias where you kind of have to give, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. You kind of have to support each different direction and kind of marry them together, if that makes sense. So I think you did a really good job on this, man. It's really good.
See, here's where I think we're going to run into trouble with 97, though, is we got to always keep in mind that we have rebooked Survivor Series technically twice already. So we can't, what we have in stone there is what we need to go with. So that has to be in the back of our minds at all time, too.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I guess in my mind's eye, there are certain things I just never thought would necessarily change with our booking. Like, I didn't ever think that we would not have the Hart Foundation. Like, that's a thing that's going to, at least as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you might think differently, but I mean, I feel like we have to have the Hart Foundation in 97.
If I'm being perfectly honest with you,
what's that?
If I'm being perfectly honest with you, I kind of forgot about the Hart Foundation while I was booking this and wanting to put Vader over and this and that. I completely forgot the Hart Foundation existed.
No, and that's fine because it's not a thing at this point. I mean, this is actually, in a way, if we're going to do the same kind of coming together of the Harts and making the Hart Foundation, this actually adds fuel to the fire. And in a way, even though you weren't considering the Hart Foundation in this booking at all, I mean, now there's even more of a strong thread because you had this match with Owen and Bulldog, which was like a real brawl between these two guys. And then you have Brett bring them back together. I mean, that even makes it stronger as opposed to them just kind of being, bickering. So in a way, it's a stronger choice for the actual angle.
And don't forget, Jerry Lawler is the Intercontinental Champion.
Oh, I haven't forgotten it. I was going to get to that. So You know what, Tyrone? I would prefer it if it was just he had a singles match. I don't think he needs the title. He's one of those guys that doesn't need a title, like we talked about with DiBiase earlier. I get why you did it, and I don't have a problem with it. But if it was me, I would have preferred him just to win the match as opposed to to winning the championship. Like, where do you see Lawler with the title? Does he hold on to it now for like a while, or is he just going to drop it the next night, or what do you think?
Oh, I have no idea. That's something that we'll figure out when we need to figure out.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, I don't have a problem with it. I was very surprised, frankly, but I know that you like Lawler as a wrestler and much more than a commentator. So it was fun to have him on the card, and I do agree with you. He deserved his WrestleMania moment. So all things considered, man, like I think you did a really solid job here. I can't really argue with a lot of it. I think it all is logical. I feel like I tried to leave you with a lot to work with after Final Four, but at the same time, you know, with this particular era as well, it's funny how Shawn losing his smile really changed the dynamic of this WrestleMania so much. I mean, not to say the whole event was hinging on his participation, but it definitely screwed up a lot of things.
But if Shawn hadn't lost his smile, I hate that fucking saying. Oh, I lost my smile. We all know what he means, but I just hate saying it. If he hadn't had that happen to him, we wouldn't have gotten the Bret and Austin Classic. Austin wouldn't have been even a bigger superstar after that night like he already was. Like, we don't know what he would have done. Had he gone up against Vader? Had he gone against Sid? Had he gone against The Undertaker? Would that have ended The Undertaker's streak potentially before it was a thing? Like, there's so many things that could have happened if Shawn took place in this.
Okay, so in your mind, Shawn's a part of this. The smile thing never happened. Shawn's knee is fine. If you're rebooking this with Shawn in participation, is it Shawn Bret for you?
Yeah, it's Shawn Bret with Bret getting his win back. And then, honestly, it's probably Austin Taker. And I could see them putting Austin over Taker.
Yeah, I could see that too, because they weren't conscious of the streak at this point. So I think it's just kind of happenstance that he ended up winning some of those earlier matches because he could have just as easily lost some of them. So, yeah, I guess it is Shawn Bret probably. But then you get rid of the submission match, or you could do the submission match at another time. I don't know. It's there's so many what ifs and maybes and this and that. But all things considered, 1997, it's one of the most talked about years in wrestling. It is one of my favorites, but it is very, very overexposed in a way. I feel like there's not a whole lot left to learn about 97. So for us to go back now 25 years later and rebook it in a fashion that you have and will continue on for the next couple of months, I guess, until the end of the year, we're going to rebook 97 and finish that off. I think that you got us a really, really solid WrestleMania, and you've left us a lot of fun opportunities and possibilities for the weeks and months to come. So good on you, buddy.
Well, thank you, sir. And I think it's time at this point that I drop on what you're going to do next week. Wow, I can't even talk today. Drop on what you're going to do. I'm going to let you know what you're rebooking next week. Would you care to know?
Yes, sure. Why not?
You are going to hop in your fun little time machine back to 2004, back to Madison Square Garden, where it all begins again. And you're going to be doing WrestleMania 20.
I sure am. And we are booking that based off of Tyrone's booking of No Way Out 2004, which was a fun card. We're still trying to figure it out, and I'm scratching my head as to what the hell do you do with Bob Holly? But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting my sleeves rolled up and getting really, really knee deep into some 2004. It's a kind of a difficult WrestleMania to rebook because you have two brands to consider as opposed to just the one through line with one show and things of that nature. So I have a bit of a task ahead of me, easy for me to see, much like you did this week, Tyrone. And I hope that I do as good of a job as you did this week, next week.
You won't. I know it. You're going to screw it up somehow.
Probably so. Probably so.
You're going to have like Goldberg versus Lesnar in a Texas death match, and then the winner of that has to face the winner of the Gimmick Battle Royale that'll happen later that night.
Yeah, well, I don't know that there'll be a Gimmick Battle Royal on that particular card. We will do a Ruthless Aggression Gimmick Battle Royal. We'll make fun of the Bashams while they're actually on the card.
And then Deuce and Domino will surprise everyone and win.
They weren't a thing in 2004, but your point is taken, yes.
You said Ruthless Aggression. We can figure out a time later. It's still the Ruthless Aggression era that they were part of.
I love that Deuce and Domino theme song. That was a lot of fun. Always makes me want to go to Wimpy's Diner and have a burger and fries.
Wimpy's Diner. That is what our show is brought to you by today, kids. For those of you that know, you know.
And for those of you that don't, you probably don't give a shit.
That's very true. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode. Are you content with that?
I certainly am. I most certainly am. Tyrone, where can our listening audience find us on social media?
I don't know, man. Google us. I'm sure they can figure it the fuck out.
Can you Google us? That'd be cool if I could be Googled.
Obviously, I'm kidding. It's on Instagram at good_enemies, on Twitter at good_enemies, on Facebook at the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. Add us to your MySpace top 7. Let's keep going, kids. For all things Good Friends Better Enemies, the classic match classroom, and Count It Out 7, head to countitout7.com.
Don't forget to check out Tyrone's ICQ page. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, for myself, for Tyrone for WrestleMania 13 for the year 1997, for Big Blue becoming Big Black in an incredible main event steel cage match, pitting The Undertaker versus Mankind, and for Flash Funk versus the Sultan, you've been listening to the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast.
Bye.